in the corruption tax will be bigger than the increase in the wage tax, okay? And that will permit the income of these people to go up.
But the occupation choice seems to be a 0-1 choice because everybody in the red line seems to be same. So what do you mean exactly by the proportion going down?
Well, I mean, there's basically three situations here. One is where everyone, I think this happens here, up to this point here. So there's a 0-1 decision, as you said, that I can be a producer or I can be a rent seeker. And if incomes are high, I will go where incomes are higher, but there's a situation between here and here. Okay, so from this point to this point, everybody who can be a rent seeker is a rent seeker. Enforcement is weak. From this point and up, nobody is a rent seeker. Okay? And in between, people are indifferent. The incomes are the same. So the fraction of people, so some people are rent seekers, some people are producers, but as you move institutions, this fractions change. Okay? So that's basically the idea.
Yeah. The mic. So there is a possibility, like in this setup, that in a kind of very high, like kind of a very good institution, the total income of the two groups could be higher than the income they started with. So if the graph is drawn to this scale, then you can see that for institution level B, the total income of the two group is higher than what they started with. And you can get with like kind of parameters this kind of situation.
Yeah.
The point is that why the rational individuals won't do the bargaining in the very first instance, and they will wait for the political process to come into effect.
Yeah. So the question is to make it simpler, is why don't the citizens of Italy, southern Italy at least, bargain with the mafia and get rid of the mafia? And if the mafia has a big impact on the underdevelopment of southern Italy, all incomes would go up, the mafia will be compensated. And the answer is, I don't know. It does not seem to be happening because it seems that, in other words, if you could allow freely redistribution across groups, then there would be no problem. Because in this model, corruption and rent seeking are inefficient. In other words, it's an inefficient diversion of factors of production away from production and into either redistribution or an attempt to prevent redistribution. That's enforcement. Okay? So instead of having cops and prosecutors and thieves, you only have producers. So the point is, what prevents us from reaching a social agreement that would compensate the losers? In this case, okay. In this case, these people who could get half unit of income with no enforcement, but only less income with full enforcement. So if we could just give them, these people gain enough, they could compensate these people for this little difference. And that's your question. And this is kind of an assumption in the model that says, for reasons that are beyond me, I cannot understand why the citizens of Naples don't have an agreement with the mafia. They don't seem to want one. So I don't really know what prevents the distribution, but it's an assumption in the paper that appropriate distribution channels are closed.
Let's have the last question of the session. So this is the case of institutions. Can your theory also be applied to culture? Say there's an unseen policeman who's monitoring you, and then the societies that are more religious will have more policing, and you get these kinds of shapes in that sense.
This is a very good question. That if once you have externalities, you only have a traditional society, what's going to happen? If you go to the extreme traditionalism, what's going to happen is just a repetition of the past. So institutions really don't matter very much or at all, depending on how traditionalist you are. So therefore, the choice of institutions is kind of not very relevant. What's important is basically the past. So the question is, if you are a prisoner of this past and the social norms are very important and they define everything, what can you do to get out of it, right? That's a very good question.